Hey, Mike Tushir here with another guided programming question. This one says, hey Mike, I compete in 5 weeks. I was wondering what kind of training I'm doing. I noticed you mentioned you personally were on a restoration block and then a functional hypertrophy block and so on. It might be helpful to know what the purpose of my actual training block is. Perhaps this could be sent along with the training for the week, or is there another way of discovering what it is just by looking at the rep ranges and intensities? It's slightly mysterious what's actually going on with my training. It might be good to know where I'm at, what's coming, and how it's all fitting together. Hmm. As far as sending that sort of information with your training for the week, I'll have to take a look at that. It would be difficult for me to do just off the top of my head, although um, let me take a look at it and see how I can make it a reliable system. That's a good idea. It's a good suggestion. So if I can do it without creating a bunch of havoc in our sending system, then I'll do that. As far as for you in particular, what's going on with your training right now? Well, if you're 5 weeks out from a competition, you're definitely in the final stages of that competition prep. Now, for each person, or really each training group, it ends up looking a bit different because we have different strategies in play for lifters of different levels and lifters of different responsiveness. So if you're 5 weeks out, the thing that we're trying to do at this point, we're gradually intensifying the training. The training's still going to be very difficult. And what you can expect is when you get to be about 3 weeks out from training, from your competition, that's going to be your most difficult training week. That's when the intensity is going to be quite high, and the volume, we're making our last real strong push with a lot of volume as well. And now, following 3 weeks, so when you're 2 weeks out, the intensity is still high. The volume has ramped down to a more manageable level. It's certainly not low. This is not easy training yet, but it's manageable. And then when you're 1 week out, that's your meet week, and that's when we have the final taper. So that's a little bit about what you can expect in the coming weeks. Um, as far as how to know in general, we don't do a lot of, like, I know a lot of people say, well, this is the peaking phase. I mean, we have that to a degree, but it's not such a clear distinction in the programs that we have. Once you get into those final 3 weeks, of course, yes, that's clearly peaking. But did it start at week 3 or did it start at week 4 or 5? There's not such a clear distinction. The phases that we use are much more blended together. Um, so that makes it difficult for me to say, here's the start of this block, here's the start of that block, and also makes it difficult for you to tell on your own. However, there are some things that you can tell. When training looks similar to how it's looking for you right now, that's, so you're 5 weeks out. This is your prime loading block, developmental cycle, whatever you want to call it. This is your meat and potatoes style of training. After the competition, you will probably go into a restoration block. Restoration blocks are characterized by lots of different types of movements. You will see the competition lift go away for a period of time, so we're going to give that movement a break. You'll see related movements, but it won't be the exact competition lift, at least in the current strategies. All this stuff is always subject to change and evolution as I develop more, as I refine the training for each group more, and so on. Also in the restoration block, something that you see are lots of different movement patterns, patterns that you aren't exposed to on a week-to-week basis in your more normal developmental cycles. So things like rotational work, you'll see that come up again, more ab work, lots more rowing, more pulling, upper body pulling. You'll see things like that. In your hypertrophy block, you'll see the return of the competition lift. That's, that remains. It's trained with a reasonable degree of intensity, although it's not nearly as intense or voluminous as your normal training. You'll also see a lot of assistance work that's focused on muscles, and probably um, the key characteristic of your hypertrophy block is you'll see myoreps. Myoreps, we've talked about before on the main RTS channel, are a kind of rest pause style of training. Um, yeah, and I encourage you to check out that video if you want to learn more about myoreps. But that's something that you'll see in a hypertrophy block.